Hello there, dear psychology students, and welcome back to another video lecture related to psychology and our chapter on personality. In this particular video, we're going to be taking a look at the effect of genetics on personality, and in part what this does is address the age-old question of which is more powerful, heredity or the environment, in terms of how we turn out. Now, the clever way of saying heredity is nature, and the clever way of saying environment is called nurture. So in the past you may have heard this called the nature-nurture controversy. That's just fine, but another way of saying the same thing is heredity versus the environment. So let's take a look at how this work is done now. So right off the bat, let's say this, that it's not either nature or nurture which is the cause, but in the end it's going to be some combination of the two, because both of them are at work. Now, if you take a look at our PowerPoint slide there, you see that family studies, twin studies, and adoption studies are the three major approaches that are used to study personality. We're going to take a look at those now. Family studies, this is a situation where you identify one person who has some sort of an unusual quality, perhaps a potentially hereditary illness such as autism, and then you go back and you look at whether the parents, the grandparents, the cousins also have the same disorder. And by doing this and taking a look at the frequency of these disorders, you can then make an estimate of the degree to which the actual disorder is heritable. Let's take a look at the next item down, twin studies. Now, you'll recall that there's two types of twins, identical twins and fraternal twins. Identical twins are the ones that look alike. That's because they've got identical DNA. And most of the time, of course, identical twins are raised together. But do they turn out exactly the same in terms of personality? No. They are remarkably similar, but not identical. And so, there is an environmental element in there as well. Historically, sometimes, too, twins are separated at birth, like if the parents had died, and one twin is raised by one person, another by someone else. And still, they resemble each other remarkably in terms of personality, but they're not as identical as they were if they were raised by the same parents. And so then, putting the kiddos into a different environment, this does have an effect upon their behavior. The last item we'd like to take a look at there are the adoption studies. And adoption studies these are very interesting the way that they're done. But before we get into the business of adoption studies, I'd like to step sideways, only slightly, and take a look at a very interesting bit of research that's been done in Russia, the old Soviet Union, taking a look at the heritability of personality. They've been breeding foxes, wildly crazy little critters there for the last 50 years or so. And they discovered that by selectively mating easygoing foxes with easygoing foxes, that they have completely transformed their personalities. This video is short, but very interesting. I think you're going to find it fascinating. So go ahead now and click the link just above my finger. If for some reason you missed the link to that particular video, hit the stop button now, back up, and click the link above my finger. In just a few moments, we're going to take a look at our remaining method that psychologists use for studying personality, namely adoption studies, a very special method. Now, let's go into this in a bit more detail. But to do so, I need to explain to you the situation a bit. There is the occasional adoptive person who grows up to become an adult and then finds out who their birth parents are. Interesting question would be this: whom do they most closely resemble? Their birth parents, who gave them their heredity, or their adoptive parents who have raised them since infancy? So let's take a look now at our next figure. And notice that in the very middle of the page there we have written adult who was adopted as an infant. They have two parents. Upper left-hand side, a birth parent, arrow pointing to them. Upper right-hand side, adoptive parent, arrow pointing to them. Notice that the birth parent gave them their heredity, nature. Notice that their adoptive parent gave them their environment, nurture. Now, here's a question for you. I want you to form your own personal hypothesis. No, there's not going to be a test. Your own personal hypothesis about which of these two would be the stronger, or if they are equally powerful. Take a look at the scale at the very bottom. 1 on the left, 5 on the right, 3 would be right in the middle. 2 would mean that if you picked 2, that you think that the birth parent, their heredity, had the greater influence on their personality. And you'd pick 4 if you think that adoptive was more powerful. So you yourself now pick the number that you predict that research will support. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. No, I'm not going to send you to watch a video. The stop sign is here just so that you've got another moment to stop and think about 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If you forgot what they mean, stop here, back up a bit, take another look at the figure. I've got the answer for you here in just a moment about what research supports. And here's your answer, position number 2. The genes from the birth parent contribute more to the youngster's personality than do the genes, the DNA from the adoptive parent. Yes, the adoptive parent stuff does affect the child, but birth parent's DNA has the greater effect. Many people would be surprised, including famous Dr. John Watson. You remember he was a fellow who said something like, "Give me a child and allow me to control all the conditions of his birth, and I can cause him to grow up to become a doctor, lawyer, clergyman, anything that I like." He would have picked position 5. He was very wrong. Let's take another look now at our opening slide, and there you see underneath adoption studies, molecular genetics. Now, since the beginning of time, you've been hearing about DNA and genes and how this affects us and how we turn out. But if you slide on down the page a little bit, now we're going to talk about epigenetics. And this may be something new for you. Most of the time, when I ask for folks to do a show of hands in class, only 1 or 2 people will say they've heard of it. Epi, as in epigenetics, that's the prefix, means near or above, and it refers to some small structures that sit next to genes, and they can operate like switches to turn genes on and off. And the decisions that you make in life, whether you choose to smoke cigarettes or not, this can then have an effect upon the next generation. This is entirely contrary and corrects what I learned as an undergraduate student, which is to say that the behavioral decisions that we make in life about our health behaviors, such as smoking or drinking or exercising or not, they would affect us, but not the next generation. That older view is not correct. These small structures, such as methyl groups, operate like switches, and they then activate or don't activate the genes that are part of our DNA. And as a result of this, if you or I develop diabetes because we eat too many sugary foods, we actually pass on to the next generation, and some research suggests to grandchildren as well, an increased likelihood for developing diabetes based upon the healthy or unhealthy behaviors that you or I performed. I do have for you now a short video that goes into epigenetics just a bit more. So go ahead and click the button above my finger there. This is good stuff. Okay, if you missed the link to that short video, hit the stop button now. Back up, go back there to the magic finger, click on the link. Good stuff for you there. Thanks. Well, what you've been learning from this particular video is that genes, heredity, nature are important, very important in terms of determining who we are, even in terms of our personality. But while genes are important, genes are not everything. And while we have an environment that's provided by our parents, of course, their environment is actually much bigger than that. So overall, the environment still has a greater effect upon her personality than does heredity. But it's interesting to know that in the case of adoptive parents and birth parents, that the heredity from birth parents is more powerful. Now, I do have one last thing that I'd like to talk with you about, and here it is. Would it be cool if you could extract some of your own DNA like they do on television? Incredibly enough, it's extremely simple to do. No, I don't mean just swabbing the inside of your cheek with a Q-tip or something like that. I mean that after having done that or something like it, you can actually pull out the little strand of DNA yourself in about 10 minutes. Later today, I'm going to be doing this with my grandson, following the steps that I'm going to share with you in the video, whose link is just above. Shows you how to do it. All you need is water and a little bit of salt and some patience in about 20 minutes. So, have fun. Yes, here's that good old stop sign once again. If you'd like to learn how to extract your own DNA at home and show it to mom and dad, just hit the stop button now, back up, and follow the little link. Okay, so here's hoping you found this video interesting and educational. It's been my pleasure to bring it to you. You take care now. This is Bob Morecook signing off and hoping you have yourself a great psychology day.
That's all, folks.